Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started today. The first thing we're going to talk about is how you start your downswing, the midway point in the downswing and the baseline, something we talk about quite a bit, especially in the winter. Some things you can do at home, things you can do, you know, with a club, without a club. We're going to talk about how um, to shallow out the shaft, like people, there's a lot of different philosophies when it comes to shallowing and steepening and so forth. And if you've been on here for a while, you understand it's all about what you're doing technically with your wrist and then your arm rotation dictates a lot of that. But we're going to look at three different players. We're going to look at Justin Thomas. We're going to look at Jordan Spieth and Dustin Johnson and just analyze really what they're doing and how they do it different, but really essentially it ends up being the same. This is Dustin Johnson, or this is Justin Thomas right here. So let's see, we'll go ahead and play him as you see him start down. I just lost it there. Let's see, we'll play this again here. All right, so when you see him here, what he'll do is he gets from the top, he's got it, hands pretty much right over the right shoulder. Some are a little bit more behind that, some are more in front, depends on the player. Jim Furyk, hand position would be more in front of the right shoulder. You might take somebody like Matt Kuchar way behind the right shoulder. That would be in between, kind of neutral, shade steep, but in that ballpark. All right, my computer here. Take just a second. All right, here we go. So what you'll see as soon as Justin comes out of transition here, he keeps a lot of space and width. You could see that more from the face-on view, and we talk about that a lot. But if you look right off the bat, he hits that seam in the shirt that we talk about, and he bends that right wrist back like we talk about on the correct way. He doesn't steepen. It doesn't go to vertical wrist cock. Vertical wrist cock would give him, again, the shaft would be standing up right here. He's got the wrist bent back appropriate enough to get the shaft where it's really on the seam of the shirt, what we call it in general, which is very, very, very good way to start to deliver the clubs. Fairly neutral. Anything under that would be underplaying. Anything over that would be overplaying, which is fine. You can still recover depending on what swing you have. You can recover from anywhere halfway down, where the halfway down is and this is maybe a frame off, not far. No, it's actually right on. In between the hands, where you see it hits the sternum, and then you can see the shaft is not in line with the hands. If it was, the head would be over here, and that would be vertical wrist cock, where you talk about the right wrist side bend. All right, and then the last plane that we talk about, really the baseline. It keeps going down. Try to catch it. It's hard. One more frame. Whoops, lost it. I'm doing this through YouTube today, so it's a little trickier, but not a big deal. And even right here is one frame. That club, you'll see, this isn't the baseline, but I'm going to go ahead and show you. You'll see that club head is still behind the hands here. And you'll see if we took a vertical angle, that club is behind. But it's not radically behind. It's just enough, because the next frame is going to be where that shaft lines up. You miss it probably.
Yep.
And it just lined up. So with that lining up, you can see now it's truly on the baseline. And everything just, right here is moving forward and turning, like we talk about. So those are the three things that I think are really essential, especially in the downswing. I don't care how you get there. If you have your arms, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, if you have your arms behind your body more at the top of the swing, if you have your arms more in front, like Jim Furyk, whatever you have, you're kind of neutral like this, and Tiger was in the day. Doesn't really matter to me. You're just going to have to find a recovery zone. If you miss it here, there's players that have their hands deeper than this, which would be behind. There's players that might have a little more in front. But when you have it deeper, you can be a little steeper with a shaft. I don't think it's good. I think you can. I see it when it's out in front. You don't want that shaft vertical. You're gonna have to start back bending and tilting and moving away from the target, side bending to the right, and compensating your spine to get the club face on the ball. And most people won't do it anyway. They'll just come right over the top of it and swipe it off the toe. But that's so some people can actually recover from vertical, and they do it through body compensation and wrist compensation really late, which is better than nothing, that's for sure. Because you got to put the face on the ball no matter what movement pattern you have. As we look at Jordan Spieth, this is an old picture or video of Jordan. This is when he was young. This is, I think he was 16. He was playing at the Byron Nelson Colonial. I can't remember this one exactly, but it doesn't really matter. He was really young, but some really good movements here. You'll see the same type of look. He's a little bit the shaft's a little bit more laid down, and the reason why that's what we call that laid down or bent more. All it is bent. Again, it's just bent more at that right wrist. You can see verticals here. He's just a shade more bent than Justin was. And when you're doing this in general, you have to look at the holes that they're trying to hit too. He may be trying to turn over a draw. It looks like he is on that hole. He might be, they will change their positions just a little bit on swings where they're trying to do certain things. I will say that it's very little, but you'll see it, and that's just, you can see it just a little bit more what we call underplaying than what would be neutral. It's more underplaying than what like Justin's was. And then as you watch as he goes forward, we're going to go to this is a different camera angle, so it's shooting at an angle, offset angle here. It's not directly down the line. But if you look at this, we're going to try to get halfway down right there. And then this is really good. He's got his hands back, and I don't think you'll hear a lot of complaints about any golf instructor where they got the hands somewhat in front of their chest. You don't want your hands way behind over here, way out in front either. And the halfway down position, those two things they have really in common is they get their arms right, their hands back in front of them, right to the center of the chest, halfway down. And they also hadn't kicked the shaft back towards their shoulder, hadn't created like fake lag and that floaty. I don't call it. It's not floating what we do. Some systems call it float loading. We don't call it that. It's just either it's whipped or it's not, and or it's casting. It's one of the two. I mean, it's either you're getting narrow or you're getting wider or you're maintaining. And he's maintaining right here. He's maintaining pressure and torque and width, and those are things that are very, very, very important in the golf swing. Obviously, if you've heard me talk about it, as he gets down to the baseline, he's not right there. Is exactly very similar to where Justin Thomas was on the frame I show, where the next frame the club would line up. He's got it under, so he's probably got to be hitting a little bitty draw here, probably 3 yards, 15 feet would be the max on that. You'll see the next frame. If I can get it right there. Now he's laid down on the baseline. That thing is on top. A bad angle to look at, but that club standing on is on top, and he's still got good pressure, like we talked about with the right wrist. You can have it sitting up and down, but if there's not a certain amount of bend in the wrist, then if it's sitting up and down, you're going to lose torque and impact. You're going to have that flip of your left wrist and whatever, right wrist, either one you want to go with. It doesn't really matter. You're going to have a lot of wrist action through the ball. He's not going to have a lot of that just because of the fact that he's got pressure there. He's got the shaft up and down on top, but he's got pressure down on the side of the shaft where I talk about, and that lead side of the shaft. And it comes in, just normal stuff here. It's all good to go. They all look a little different, and all look a lot of the same when they come through here like this. So then you go over to Dustin Johnson. This was a unique one because, like I said, if you look at the video, it says like 240, hit at 244, which is not the most important thing. There's people who can probably hit it further than that with long drive with a 5-iron, but it's pretty cool shot. But you'll still see those same characteristics here. If you look at what he's doing, he increases this angle, so he's got it where it would be more the club would be more behind. It would be more side bend than vertical. Obviously, he doesn't. You can tell he's got side bend. That club is here. That wrist was vertical. He wanted his wrist conditions would not look anywhere close to the same as they look. This is really strong, in my opinion. And all you got to do is watch him hit golf balls, and you'll see that's why nobody wants to change him if they got a brain on them. Again, you see that same relationship halfway down. These are all common denominators right in connection. This is what you don't hear a lot of people complain about that know how to teach golf for a living. And coach golf for a living when they really work with high-level players. There's a big difference in coaching golf for hit and giggle and stuff like that. And there's also a difference when you coach it and you're taking it at a level where somebody's livelihood's on the line. You're not gonna hear the ones that really do that, that where they're coaching players that their livelihoods are on the line, or they're trying to get them scholarships into college, or really turn them into a high level junior or a club champion potentially. That wasn't there. You're not gonna hear a lot of those coaches say that they don't want the hands in front halfway down and some angle here. Now that angle is where it gets a little bit. I think a lot of coaches don't understand yet. I think they're getting it around the ballpark. At least they're getting angles right, but the where the pressure's at with the angle is certainly it's crucial. And then if you watch down here, here's the same angle we looked at before. Club heads behind a little bit, and then it'll get right in the line. It'll work itself into the line, and now it's straight up and down on top relative to that camera angle. It's right on where it should be, and there's a tremendous amount of pressure. If you just look at the angles of the wrist, you don't have to see the club, because if you see the pressure of where the wrists are, that's not tugging or pulling or holding or anything like that. It's just pressuring it. And when you do that, the energy of the shaft is right in that lead side, and it is about to it's about to get turned loose here, as you see. And it's gone after that. And there's not a lot of rotation of the face, and not a lot of arm roll or anything like that. And at this point, it wouldn't really matter a whole lot, but you can see a lot of that stability of the face that he has through the ball, which in my opinion, I believe he's the best ball striker on the PGA Tour, and I don't think it's even close. Because you have to respect distance. If you don't, if you just think you can just hit it straight, well, you hit it straight can hit it 150 feet, and you hit it straight, but you can't play golf doing that. You got to play it and hit it a certain adequate amount of length. I think as far as if you take him, and somebody says, well, player hits it 285 yards, hits it perfect right down the middle every time, and hits 14 fairways, 12 fairways. Well, he can do that with his 2-iron. He can play the same way. And he could take his 2-iron and do the same thing and get those stats perfect like that. And he would lose a lot more events, because he can take a chance at losing 4 or 5 more. He can take a chance of losing 4 or 5 fairways and being just off center just a little bit. Like way off 30, 40 yards. You're talking about somebody that when he's on, it's best driver in the game, period. Like Greg Norman, but he hits it a mile further. So, and then he's a phenomenal wedge player, and he's turned into, a streaky putter, and that usually determines his wins, or it really is putting for him. So ball striking is huge, and he's the best at it. And you got to pay attention. You don't have to copy a swing. You don't have to but you have to pay attention to what he's really doing. In my opinion, because a lot of people get caught up in what it looks like up here at the top, and they think, oh, he just bows his left wrist. And if you really understand what's going on, left wrist is getting bowed because of the right wrist, and he's not using his left on that near as much as you think. He's using his right a lot more. He's using his thoracic to get that back as well, and then he's using his circular movements through the ball, like we talked about with Tai Chi, where you do circular movements out of the downswing. And he just got it kind of all going, and it's a lot of flow. And then when people start seeing these angles, and he's got a tremendous amount of width, which is another thing that's awesome. He has a tremendous amount of width, but he's got beautiful angles here. He's never going to have the club really stuck, and he's really never going to have the club steep. He's going to always do what he does, clip it and have a lot of compression. Probably takes one of the. He doesn't take the shallowest divot on tour. He takes the shallowest divot on the PGA Tour that has the most compression. Whereas if you look at say a Bubba Watson, where he pops, major divot out of there and things like that, and you can certainly compress it, beat down on it and all that. Problem is you run into a lot of spin issues. If it's wet, the ball can jump on you. There's a lot of different things, but when you clip it like he does, it's almost like you've got Tom Watson in a way where, if you watch Tom Watson back in the day, if you're a younger golfer, you haven't, but if you could watch him and listen about how good an iron player he was, and even like a Scott Hope, he's so much more athletic, and he's so much better than they are. I mean, he's not even close. I'm not saying record. I'm just saying he's just so much better as a ball striker. And he clips it like they clip it, but he clips it like somebody that's like a Bubba Watson or John Daly or somebody like that. He's doing it with a tremendous amount of speed, and that's really not normal. That's just really not normal where you see somebody that hits it that far and they're not beating down the ball and stomping their right hand into the ground and really, a lot of stiffness through there and all that. He's really not. He's really silky, and he's just clipping that ball like a bacon strip, and he's smashing it, like this one says. I think it was a 244-yard 5-iron. Hey, look, doesn't shock me. I don't care if they're fluffing the yards or not. They're not fluffing it that much. And it's just somebody that you want to pay attention to what the best in the world is doing. A lot of people get caught up in like Ben Hogan back in the day. Hey, it's not understanding, smart, and all this. This guy, I'd say, you put Ben Hogan out there right now, and you give me him, and you can put any golf ball you want. I think he'd break the equipment from back then. He wouldn't be able to play a full round. Johnson, you can take it and eliminate putting as far as I'm concerned, and I'll take Dustin Johnson every day of the week, and everybody else can have Ben Hogan. Some people say you're crazy. Well, Ben Hogan's going to be hitting 3 woods, and he's going to be hitting freaking 7 irons, and I'm going to take my odds on that. I'm going to take my chances with that, on these golf courses. So, it's just it's evolved. I think there's things that he does that Hogan did. I think that Hogan should have done things that he's doing with wit, establishing more pressure in certain areas earlier, not so late, and not as much flimsiness and things like that. But people are really they're really reluctant to criticize greatness. And the thing is, if you're a great coach, you have to see things that I believe that are weak, and I see those things that I see a lot of things that Hogan did that were weak. I don't see that. I think I saw so many things that he did that were phenomenal, and he pressurized the shaft. He had beautiful rhythm. He had circular energy. He had got through the ball, and everything was all that good. He had great angles, stuff like that. But there's things he was missing, and he was, in this day and age, I think he would have found it. I don't think it's something that, if you look at some of these players, even like Justin Thomas does a phenomenal job. He and Hogan weren't much different in size in general, but you see a guy here that creates way more wit and way more whipping speed, and still has beautiful angles. And so, it's one of the reasons why you see, such a good striker of the golf ball, real clean divot there. You see great angles, and they have all the, the fluidity and all those things. And they have a lot more space this day and age versus like a Hogan. So I think it's important to talk about. So I know we've got players on here that sent me questions about, why don't you do more with Hogan? Well, look, I've got the software to do it. I can talk about Hogan all day long. Jack Nicklaus was a better player in that era. I mean, Hogan was kind of leaving the era, but you put him back in the same era, he's going to wear Hogan out anyway. It's the same thing because he had more power. And people don't look at power. They look at power as like it's out of control. You can't win the major championships that Jack Nicklaus won without that crazy, wicked power, but accuracy attached to it. And you can just hit it sideways and win the amount of tournaments he won. And also putting. And he's a better putter. And but in general, I think you have to pay attention to power, and people want to shy away from it or say, oh, the equipment's too good or the ball's too good and these guys aren't near as good. They couldn't play with the old ball. And if somebody actually truly believes that, they've literally lost their minds. They can play with anything. You give them whatever you want, and they're going to figure it out. Now, it might look different. Yeah, they might hit it shorter. They might break the equipment from back then because there are more powerful athletes. They know how to do it better than they did back then. Yeah, but they can play. I guarantee you give them time, not one event, just like the players of that generation they couldn't play with the equipment right now. The links are a lot different. The weights are different. You give them one round, they're going to look weird. Their timing's not going to be right. But you give these players, a few rounds, and I'm telling you, it would be, they can play with anything. They can play with Hogan's club, Snead's club. You can play with anything. These are world-class golfers that are 30, 40, 50 years where those other guys were in history. Yeah, they can play better, and they move better, they swing better, they hit it better. Their nerves are better, their minds are better. Everything else is really better. And it's not that you want to knock though, because it's not. It's just this is where we're at right now. It's a different generation, and it's a different way to do it, and it's a lot simpler, I believe, now to swing a golf club than what it was, unless you get onto all this crazy stuff and crazy equipment, trying to play old equipment and trying to swing like Hogan or Bobby Jones or whatever you want to try to do. These guys just, like Arnold Palmer said, swing your swing. You find what you do, and you do it. And if you haven't found it, well, then don't tell everybody about it. Go find it. Once you find it, then you can start talking a little bit more about it. You have a little more credibility. But so we'll look at this one more time. It's pretty simple. We'll look at Dustin. We'll let these play a little bit. I think. There we go. We'll just run it through, and you'll see. Let's let it run through with their actual swings in slow motion. Every swing is a little bit different, should be. Gets it on top of the right shoulder with a good right side turn there. Starts to bend the right wrist as he's starting to circle, and that creates a lot of torque through the ball. All right, we'll take a look at this. A little different camera angle, same thing though. You'll see the same tendencies. Hand position at the tops. It's really not that much different if you're looking at it directly down the line. So like I said, this camera's offset. You'll see the right wrist bend there a little bit more to get what he wants. Let's get more pressure. And great timing between the body and club to the ball. Not a lot of rotation with the face. That's good. And then look at Dustin Johnson here. Let's play from here. Same thing. You kind of see hands go neutral. Got obviously more bend into the right wrist. Increases that here. It keeps a lot of whip down. It really increases that. So now he never has to worry about the club ever getting steep on him. And now it's just he's got to work or losing space. So now he just can unwind and rip it. And you don't even see it's not going to be snapping or anything like that, but he's creating a massive amount of torque and speed through there without you really seeing it, which I think is awesome. All right, and with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions if there are any.
Hey Matt, how you doing?
Good. How's it going, Bob?
Good. It looks like my observations, I'm going to tie in with my question. It looks like Dustin Johnson's hips are further back than like Spieth or Thomas. I don't know whether that's because he's taller or whatever, but I'm having a problem with, I'm getting my handle lower, and you talk about pushing the club away on the downswing to create torque. And I think in order to do that, you have to have those hips back, and I still have problems early extending a little bit. How do you keep those hips back so that you can get that push away?
Yeah, and you don't want to, and you definitely don't want to just cast it away. You know, it's you're trying to pressure it away, and there's a difference, and it's just the words you're using. But you don't want to start casting the right wrist out all the way. I mean, you can't. He's just maintaining what he's got, but it's how you pressure the shaft and the right wrist bend here. That's the key. They got all like with him. He knows in his mind he's trying to hit this a mile. I mean, he knows that's really pushing it. 244-yard 5-iron. There's a reason why he's trying to do that. I don't really know the circumstances he's in, but he's trying to push that probably 15, 20 yards further than normal. And so when you see that, typically, I mean, what I see, you're going to see more of that opening, and he has a lot of it anyway, which is great in my opinion. But he's going to see even a little bit more. Jack Nicklaus was notorious for that. He just turned his right hip more. Hogan even talked about it. You don't want to restrict it because then you snap quicker out of transition, and then you'll start losing the club face. But really, when they come out of transition, you really, and if you don't have the mobility, I think everybody that I've seen, most people that I've seen, mass majority of have the mobility, they just don't do it. They just don't turn. They're afraid to turn this right side. And then when they do turn it, then they end up with some other issues. So I understand that you don't have to, but the more you open up that right hip, the more it makes sense. You're going to create more, whipping speed, like hook speed, like in boxing. And, you wouldn't stop the hip from turning if you're trying to throw a right hook or a left hook. You wouldn't just keep it steady. There's some opening and closing. And same here is in this shot. I mean, every shot really, you should open that right side up. Don't be scared of it. But where I see people get into trouble is they don't get the angles right in this area. Now he's doing a little bit different. He's doing it earlier, but he still increases it. Even when he increases it here, you'll see another increase of that right wrist bend instead of right. And when you even that right there, all that just that shallow, it went from even from where it was, it's changed. It's already changed a few degrees, and he's done that by bending that right wrist even more. And when he bends that right wrist, now he's creating a whole different angle of attack. And that's, to me, that's number one. And that's creating pressure. You're not seeing him really lose width or gain a lot of width. There may even be a small increase in like even it wouldn't be cocking, but it'd be a little bit of cocking with bending of the shaft, but you don't want to see it just flimsy. And if it gets flimsy, typically what's happening, well, one, there's no support or torque, so the club just loses all support and it kicks back vertical and kind of towards your body. So then you lose that space face on, you lose that spacing and all that, and down the line you lose your angles down the line, you lose your spacing coming through the ball, and there's no pressure really attached to it unless you save it right down on the baseline, which most people just don't. So this is where I would tell players, yeah, they're going to look a little bit. Everybody looks a little bit different with how much they turn the right side in the backswing. He uses his thoracic part of his spine really well, and along with his right side, and that helps him create low. But if he changed his wrist conditions to vertical, standing straight up, he wouldn't be talking about him because he wouldn't know how to recover. That's not how he does it. It's not where he finds. Where he's making it all work is, yeah, he's turning his right side and all that, but he's got pressure, and it's not in this left wrist. Like, his pressure there, trust me, but he's pressuring it from the backhand, and with doing that, it allows him to always circle and unwind and keep the club essentially behind him, behind the hands being in front, because the club head's always going to be behind. I mean, if you're an elite player, but your hand location, he's able to get his hands back in front of his body and keep the club head behind and never ever have to think about it, never have to worry about it. So he's never going to have to really flip through the ball and square the face and do a lot of things, post impact either.
What causes that early extension instead of keeping the hips back like he is? Is it
Probably not training enough kettlebells. I mean, some people's bodies function different. I mean, Dustin Johnson, when he's 90 years old, I can assure you his body's not going to function the same as it was when he was right now in his prime. Just like Muhammad Ali won't box as well or anybody, George Foreman, they're not going to box as well when they get old, and there's a reason, because their body doesn't function the same. But if you don't have hip depth, as you're doing rotation, most of the time they can do it. I see when people can do it, they just don't. They're not training right for it, and they're not understanding the concept. Usually, they're just trying to stick their butt back, and that doesn't do it because that locks up the hip. Because the hip's it's a ball socket, so it needs to be rotational. And if you just stick the butt back, well, then you usually stiffen up the hip. Your left side collapses if you're a right-sided golfer kind of like a stack and tilt move. So you lock up the energy in the right side. Your left side, then your thoracic won't rotate, and then now you got a whole nother set of issues. And you can actually play like that. If you have great arm movement and wrist movements, you can still play out of that. But it's not what you want to do. If you don't have it, then you need to really work on your body with deep squats. If it's just going to bit fitness and biomechanics and you leave really like function out of it, like as far as like what people, I think they can do it without a lot of mobility. I think that stuff's overrated. From what I've seen, because I've tested it and I've seen players that don't have any that do it great, and I've seen players that have great mobility that don't do it at all because they have no idea what they're doing. And even when they try to, it doesn't work. So my opinion is on it, though, if you're going to get with anybody that's going to talk to you, about just fitness and biomechanics, they're going to tell you to learn how to do a deep squat, overhead deep squat, without any weight. Just improving your deep squat, improving your internal hip rotators. That means flexibility, similar to the splits, your internal rotators. It's a lot hurts on the insides when you do splits, and just modifying those and doing those. But you need to have the body a certain a certain time. I think you need to be with a professional doing it. I think, if you don't know what you're doing, you haven't trained, you better get with somebody that really understands function and that can get your body warmed up so that when you don't just start stretching like that and you pop something real quick. But if you get if you got with a trainer, and I would recommend it to anybody on the program, that you get with somebody that's a true professional that studies function. Don't just go to somebody that says golf specific and all this. Look, man, it's like, I don't know. There's a lot of used car salesmen out there. I hope that doesn't offend anybody, but I'm just telling you there are. And you really want to go to somebody that has credibility with elite athletes that have done it for a lot of years, and that know what true posture really is, and know how to maintain that, and forget the golf swing. You don't have to have, if you've got a great trainer, your trainer does not have to know how to play golf in order to help you. You need to know how to play golf. They don't. That's not their job. Their job is to make your body function. Where that means function is mobility in all the correct areas that need mobility, and stability in all the areas that need stability, and balance in all the areas that need balance. And different body parts are designed to do different things, and great trainers understand this. So there's not like, there's no such thing as really golf specific. It's just a way to move. Now there's a way to move. Like if you're in a linear sport, for the most part, like you're a football and you're a lineman, you're an offensive tackle. Your diet's going to be different. Your weight training is going to be different than, say, Tom Brady. Tom Brady's in a rotational sport. So if you take somebody that's a football kicker or that, they're working with specific people with diet and about inflammation and keeping where they don't have tightness, or they lose the chi blocks that I talk about. Those things don't arise near as much. They're a lot healthier rotationally than, say, like I said, a lineman or a lineman. Some of those players, even linemen, they cut and turn and move. Don't get me wrong. They're not doing rotation like a kicker, a field goal kicker, a pitcher in baseball, and all those hockey players. Really great crossover sports. You look at really great crossovers to golf. Look at who they are naturally. Football quarterbacks are usually really good golfers in general. The ones that are actually really good, they're really they got silky swings. They turn really well. They hit the ball really well, nice, and all that, and they never play. Then you've got pitchers. Baseball pitchers are notorious for being really good. Really good. You'd think hitters, but the hitters are not, because they're pulling and tugging and doing all this stuff. Pitchers are more fluid. They're rotationally over their left leg. They're doing all kinds of different things with their body that are, stable, mobile, and stable and balanced and everything else with a lot of velocity. And then you've got hockey players, which in my opinion and what I've seen, until somebody can prove me different, I wish I'd done data on it from all the hockey players I've coached, but I haven't coached one that was a good hockey player, not an average hockey player, but a good hockey player. I haven't had one yet that couldn't, go shoot in the 70s within a month of just starting the game. I mean, it's crazy. But you guys remember, they're spending their whole life on ice, and if they have bad lower body and body mechanics, they're on their backside. They're doing the same thing we do. They're hitting something on the ground. They're taking a stick and hitting a whatever object and making it go certain ways and trajectories and angles and all these different directions. And they know the side of the shaft, if it angles right, ball's going right. They know if they tuck it down and in, it's going left. They know if they drive it forward and want to make it low, it goes low. And if they want to flick it up, it knows how to make it high. So there's all these things. They're doing it wicked speeds and somebody trying to take their head off. And so that's the number one crossover that I've seen for both power, accuracy, and just, the one that's got the most talent. So how they train legs, core, and rotation. Legs, core, rotation. It's not how big your upper body is. It's not how, muscular your biceps and triceps are. It's about legs. And I say legs, I'm saying all of it. Your butt, your quads, all of that. I'm saying it's your core, and I'm saying it's your rotational function with that stick. It is what makes somebody that's a really good hockey player, just like a golfer. Those are the three main things. The things that need to be rotational. If you're talking about shoulder joints and those things or whatever, you need shoulders. You're going to need your hips where they can move rotationally. You're going to need your glutes for stability, so you can keep pressure in the ground. You're going to need your lats for extension. And then you're going to need wrist mobility for the bending that you're going to need, and so forth, that you need for pressure. So, but those people know this. If you really train with somebody that's been doing it, if you don't know and you're curious, in your area and you want to train with somebody local, what I would tell you to do is usually the best one that I've seen as far as understanding posture in the golf swing, not in the golf swing, I shouldn't say that, just posture in general, is called functionalpatterns.com. And the guy's kind of a whack, but that's most of us are that really study what we do. He's got a lot of science behind what he does. I believe in what he does. I went through the program, and I train quite a bit off and on. I mean, I train a lot, and I'm never ever sniffing even being injured. Never being, sore is one thing, but injured and hurting or sharp pain, that's a whole different ballgame. The way they teach movement, it would be, if I wanted to implement one style, that'd be it. That'd be the one style. If I wanted to implement, there's a movement program after that I would, if you got more advanced and you really want to take it to a new level, I think it's called Ido Portal or whatever, Patel or something like that. It doesn't really matter. It works with Conor McGregor on movement patterns, and they're really based on animal movement patterns, a lot of different types of martial arts. I would recommend anybody going and checking out those two. Most people will see, I think it's Ido's stuff, and you're going to want to do that immediately. When you don't, you need to learn posture first and how to move and rotate and maintain structure alignments and posture, which I've talked about all the time. And then over time, a year, then start to work on, getting more silky and more rhythmical and challenging yourself in a few different ways as well. But I think that in the winter, this is a tremendous opportunity for anybody to start to, if you want to improve your potential, really the only way you can do it at a certain point is through, athletic training that is specific to what you're doing. And it doesn't have to say golf specific, because that doesn't really mean much to me. If somebody says they're TPI certified, look, I've been around a lot of them. I've seen a couple of them that are decent. I've seen a couple of them are good. I've seen way more out there in the world that don't even know how to play golf that are a million times better. And they know how to develop your body, your mind, and your diet and your nutrition relative to your sport, and they don't play golf at all. So it has nothing to do with being like, fitness certified. I was golf fitness certified when they first came out, and even when I went through it, I thought it was pretty a little bit lame, as far as what they were, doing. In general, I still think there's a lot of it out there that is. I think there's some of it's really good as well. It's just you don't want to start doing stuff that's silly though. You don't want to waste time. And if you get a great trainer and somebody really understands function of movement, flow of movement, you won't be wasting time. You'll never be wasting time. Your drills will always have a purpose. Everything that you do, there's no out there just like, well, I spent 20 minutes doing this stupid exercise that I know good and well it didn't help me. You're not doing that. It's like a golf swing. You might have an hour golf lesson. If you spent 20 minutes of it flying kites, you'd probably feel like you didn't learn anything, and you probably didn't. And I feel like that happens a lot in that industry. And so you gotta be real careful with who you pick out. Don't just go pick the first trainer, the cheapest one. Find one. You're better off to spend $150 an hour on a trainer to $200 an hour on a trainer and take 5 lessons than take 30 lessons for $1,000 from somebody done their butt from a hole in the ground. And I think that's very important for people to understand. Doesn't have to. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm just telling you from a professional opinion, and it's an expert opinion because I've done this and I've trained in this for a lot of years. You're much better off to find somebody that can help you understand the movement. You have to listen to them, listen to what they're saying, take notes, and really understand postures of the body, of the spine, and what they are, and your structure and your alignments. Pay attention, and then go in there and start to create. Do it first. You don't have to do these deep squats and these major deep things. Your goal is to be able to eventually do those. But my point is your function not going to allow you at first. Take your time. It's going to take you a while. Make it a goal. It's a 3 or 4 month goal. Start watching yourself change, and you may have to modify diet to decrease inflammation to be able to do the things that you need to do. And then you may have to do a lot of different things to get to what you need to do. I don't know, but once you start to increase function, you're going to start to increase potential. Doesn't mean you'll use it, because you can have all the potential in the world. You have vertical wrist cock, you're dead. If you don't move right, you're not going to make it. I mean, you still have to have wrist, arm. There's still a different thing to the game. You can be tight and overweight and all kinds of things and be able to club champion every year. I've seen it. So what I'm saying though is that same player, what'll happen is eventually they'll tighten up too much and they can't move, and then they lose so much distance and they lose the ability to win those tournaments and so forth. What I'm talking about is potential and longevity. Also prevention, injury prevention. You won't, if you move right, you're just not going to get injured very often. You can't say you're not ever going to get injured, but I just don't see it with our players. We don't have any players really that are injured or any of that stuff. We really don't. I have players I've worked with before that were radically injured, high level players before I worked with them. But really, I don't know of any juniors where they call me and say, man, I'm hurt. I can't remember the last time we had a player that even mentioned it, close to mentioning it. Like, oh, my back's hurt, my wrist, my this or that. They don't, because we train them that when they're here at the schools, we're going to do the same thing we've been doing for a lot of years. We don't change much anything. You're going to do kettlebells. You're going to learn how to do posture, structure, and alignments when you work out. When you have a golf club, you're going to learn how to move correctly, so you're not exposing your spine. Like most people think they're using their hips when they're just using their lower lumbar. They're trying to spin their hips, which is really just spinning the lower lumbar, which is what gets you injured. It snaps the knee back. Now you got another problem with knee injuries. A lot of it's just learning and torque-based swing versus speed-based swing. When you take a torque-based swing, you look at the injuries to people that have true torque-based swings, and it's not even close to the ones that have speed-based swings or snapping energy like a Tiger Woods, a la Tiger Woods or Jordan or Roy McIlroy. And there's more of them out there than that when they have snapping energy with their hips and knees and things like that. You're going to have a lot more injuries, and you don't have to do it to have actual speed, ball speed, club speed, and all those things. You don't have to do those things. You're really just it's a superficial type of movement that gets people injured a lot, because it's like being jarred in a car. If somebody hits the brakes and jars you, I mean, man, you got potential to get a head injury or a neck injury for sure, because you just jar. I mean, your body's not designed to snap like that. So if it's slower, yeah, and it may be just as powerful, but if it's slower, then all of a sudden you can do things and you don't see the speed, even though the speed's there. But your body, understanding structure, alignments that I talk about, and posture, those should be number one as far as focus, as far as fitness and biomechanics. It's no more complicated than that. And I've got plenty of videos on it. It's just a matter of studying it and really watching it. Then if you don't feel like you can do it, and you can't learn it, you can either train online with us, or you can just go ahead and find somebody in your local area that really understands it and really understand. And they, just because they say they know posture, what I've learned through my journey is that doesn't mean they know posture. So if you want to send me their stuff, I'll look at it and evaluate it. And if I say that I think they know what they're doing, then good. Most of the time they'll have like a physical therapy background, and it'll be a lot of years. And they'll kind of do like a cross between like physical therapy, light fitness, which is like band training. That doesn't mean it's always right either. There's certain ways your body is designed to move. Tai Chi has it figured out. I hadn't had to change anything from that. But there's ways to, when you start bending and turning and twisting, that you need to know how your spine needs to react to that, and or your joints to maintain good pressure in the ground, but also core stability and not lumbar instability, because that's where people get hurt, when your lumbar is not stable. So, well, I kind of went off on that, but that's all right. That'll help people if you study that. But I can't recommend high enough, if you want to make yourself better over the winter, make your body more elastic, make it more fluid, and make it more powerful. And it starts by posture, structure, and alignments. It just starts with just getting good at movement without weights, or with a little bit of weight. And then as you get really good with function and movement and posture and structure and alignments in whatever direction you're going, then you can start to add a little bit more onto it and get into more, like I said, dieting and things like that, nutrition, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter to me. But you get the inflammation out of your body, the better you'll be able to turn. There's no question about that. From what I've been studying the last year, which I've been studying quite a bit and also applying it, and there's no question that you will have you're more elastic when your diet's cleaner, and you have there's different ones for different people. But in general, if you stay with something like a keto diet and balance it out, there's a couple of guys like Paul Chek that talks about there's no such thing. You don't want to just do one. Like your body may need like a keto diet for like 3 days, and it may need like a vegan or vegetable diet for a day or two, and then it may need some paleo in between, or whatever you want to do. But you mix up your diet that makes sense, and your body, once you get in tune with it, you'll start to understand how you feel and react better. Like you're going on a heavy weightlifting day and you go pump it out, your body's gonna be craving protein all day long. So you're gonna need to do more protein, probably some light carbohydrates, if at all any, and more like vegetable based and stuff like that, and fiber to keep your brain from going crazy. You're wanting to eat like an elephant. And then on days you might have that, you might have 2 days of that because your body's trying to break down those proteins, and it's making you more hungry and things like that, because you're pushing out more. It's trying to push back, but you can't go over and eat 3 Domino's pizzas. You're going to go, it ain't going to work, because your brain's going to want to do that. And if you get into like lean proteins and then things like, that are in vegetables and high in fiber and avocados and good fats and oils and those types of things, it can really help. And then all of a sudden you turn that into, you got on your 3rd day, and you say you're going to you got a sales job and you're going out on the road for 2 days. At that point, you might just go, vegetables the next 2 days, eat a lot of salads and very little meat at all, if any. and something spinach based, something dark green like kale or spinach or whatever, and you work those with different vegetables in it, and it kind of clears you out. It gets because you're not putting any strain on your system really at that point in that third and fourth day. So there's no need to be going out and eating like crazy proteins either, even the keto diet or the paleo diet. You could go lighter at that point, and then you come back like a day or two later and you start giving it some paleo or keto or whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it. Basically, and the meats that I've seen that work really well, you have to find the ones that work for you and so forth. But like when you talk to professional golfers, wild caught salmon, omega 3s and 6s, those are brain foods. Same thing as the avocados, brain foods. You got good fats. Fats are brain foods, good fats. And then you've got lamb, which is the only red meat that I know of that's omega 3 and it has omega 3s and 6s in it. But I still think that even eating so you watch somebody eat a ribeye versus like even though ribeye's got a lot of fat in it, it's not still not the good fat. It's kind of empty fat. But like if you take something like somebody eats a fillet, a 6-ounce fillet will fill most people up that can eat a 20-ounce ribeye, and it's really because the leanness of the meat. So those are all good, and of course the chicken's there, and you can get into all kind of wild stuff when it gets into all that. But even like going back to wild game, you can eat venison and elk and some of those things that you can order online now. You can get those foods and mix those in. Those are excellent for you as well. So, but what I have learned is the diet is very, very important. I think a diet's got to be relative to what you're doing. And I think if you get in touch with it enough, you'll know what you need. Like my own instructor used to say, one of my mentors used to tell me all the time, you just got to feed what you need. And that was, he was talking about golf swing and all that. But what I found, you have to feed what you need with your diet, your nutrition, your exercise, and you'll know, and your golf swing, and your way you play mentally and everything. You just got to feed in what you need, and everything else is not really relevant, And I know that the diet that's probably the most popular right now is the keto diet. If you do some research, I'm not going to tell you all about it. I've done a lot of research on it. I've done it, and I lost a lot of weight doing it. But there's weaknesses within it as well. I think it takes a lot of people don't like the word diet, but it's named diet. It's whatever you want to call it. I don't really care. But the nutrition part of it is knowing kind of where you're at and where you need to be and what you're really trying to do. The nutrition for an offensive tackle that plays for Alabama is not going to be the same nutritional pattern for, say, like a field goal kicker, that I know of. It's probably not going to be the same. So they have two different jobs. They're going to have two different styles. And golf, the main thing is getting vegetables that don't create a lot of inflammation. Anything you can do to reduce inflammation as a human is better for you, in your brain, to your body, everything. When you reduce inflammation, you're making it harder for disease to start and go. You're also making it where you can rotate and function. Your agility will usually be a lot better without, no doubt, it will be better without inflammation, especially a severe amount. So in our sport, you want that type of diet, and there's a lot of different ones, and you'd have to find out your own portions of proteins and carbohydrates and sugars and all this stuff. Really, what you have to do that makes you'll know if you journal it and you say, "Hey, man, I functioned great when I ate this the last few days," or I played terrible, when I ate this or did that or whatever, and in this, and you'll start seeing a correlation if you hit your game to a certain level, probably. I'd even say mid 80s and below, you'll start to be able to tell patterns. If you eat the same thing every day, you'll never know. I mean, if you're eating if it's just junk every day, or if it's healthy every day, you really never know. And if you're eating healthy, I wouldn't tell you to go to junk, but I'm just saying, if most people are eating junk and they have no idea that affects the ability to rotate and create fluidity, So, and it does. There's no question that, and how you train in the gym and how you swing in general, and your mental outlook, all those affect the fluidity of the swing and really the ability to do things that increase potential, or in my opinion, decrease potential. So we're all going to decrease at a certain point in life. It's usually most people are not even playing, even if you're in 60s and 70s, they're not, it's not like, oh, I'm old, I can't do this now. It's really, that has not, no, that's not what I'm saying. There's a certain point, like if you're doing everything right, yeah, I mean, you're just, it's not going to be like you were 18 again, but it's probably going to be 80% better than what you currently were, like when you started it. So if you gave it a 2 or 3 year program and you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s or whatever, you're going to see a difference with the right diet and the right strength training for the game. Understanding posture, structure, alignment, develop adequate amount of strength as a golfer. But we call it golf strong. There's a difference between being golf strong and strong. There's a huge difference. Somebody could be very, 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 very strong, but very, very, very golf weak. And somebody could be very, very, very weak in the gym and be very, very golf strong. And with that being said, if they work on the things that make them functionally stronger, that person that is golf strong that is weak in the gym, they get strong. They get stronger as they keep going. Whereas if somebody that's strong, most of the time they're thinking of like either bench press or how much they can squat or all these big numbers, or like take a car and push the thing or whatever, big strength. And whereas they might, when they try to rotate, it all looks bundled up, and it is, and they don't have any snapping or rotational power, and they don't have any of that ability to create an adequate amount of torque. So they're really like golf weak. Whereas somebody that doesn't work out at all, like say Bubba Watson back in the day when he came on the tour, he wasn't working out at all. And, he was really, really, really golf strong, but he was just physically weak, as far as functionally weak. But he was golf strong. So when he went to the gym, started increasing, well, yeah, things got better. He won more. Same thing with Dustin Johnson. He works out more now than he ever has. And this makes his golf strength that he already had naturally, his natural potential, it just made it stronger and stronger and stronger. It's making it better. And that's why it's further and further and straighter. You don't ever hear him really getting injured ever. It's just, those are the things that's going on out there. And so, you don't have to do it exactly like they do it, but it's certainly important to know what they're really doing out there. So, do you have any other questions?
I have one question, Matt.
All right.
Yeah, just real quick, the coming out of transition, that 6-inch move, you talk about pressuring out of it. It's like you don't cast out of it, but it's a gradual pressure, and first of all, I know you never think about getting fast into that left side. You want to sink down first, make sure your lumbar spine is stable so it can support that second part of the sequence of the thoracic rotation, so it can smoothly rotate more efficiently along that stable lumbar spine. I know that needs to happen first, but could you just describe the pressure move in your right wrist relative to after you sink down and you're stable in your lumbar spine?
Yeah, so on this wrist, if you just look out, it's angle here. If you can just picture these knuckles going this way, not your left wrist, but they're turning backwards like that. That's it. You're not changing really your hand position or anything. I'm trying to do a smaller line here, but you're not changing all you're taking is this here, and you're turning that back this way. That's it. And you just turn, and when that does, you'll see him do it. And what that'll do, it could be from any position, but he's already got some of it here, right? All right, but there would be vertical. So if the right wrist if you took the knuckles and you went this way, this direction, you would have vertical wrist cock, or you would have, even past that, which you would have more like, severe cup or whatever. But in general, he's not doing that. He's just he's going to bend it. Let me get that out of the way. He's going to bend it just like all the players do. Now, it depends on where they bend it at different spots, but I believe you should start bending it right as you get prior into that area. That's the float, which is a little earlier. He's already been doing it. He obviously did it in his takeaway. But if you look here, he'll bend that again. He's not pushing his arms back. He's bending that wrist, and that creates even more offset angle to vertical, because you need to know what vertical is. And you don't want to be, if you see that shaft standing straight up and down right there, you're going to be dancing and moving away from the ball through impact. You're going to be holding back and trying a little bit more arm rotation. You can do it, but you still have to make that move I just made anyway. You're gonna have to make it down because you can't come in just vertical. You got to start bending and turning, and that movement of the wrist will start to happen. It may happen down around this area, down by the ball. Like a Mickelson, Jason Day has some of it, and so forth. But that's the thing is, I was just increasing this bend, and it's just like if you feel like you turn the knuckles that way with the right wrist, and then your body has, you're not snapping out of it. Now you're starting to gently circle, and as that comes through, your body's going this way. You've turned your wrist back that way, so you've got this kind of this synergy. And if I can do this, we'll play it. And you'll see. But you see the club head is never going to get behind or in front of the hands. It's never going to get over the hands. It's always staying back, but the hands are in front, so he's never going to be like trapped. He's not going to be like stuck, like they used to call it tiger. You get stuck. Sometimes in his swing and so forth. A lot of that was he didn't have the right top. His pressure was too late, and later than he wanted. When his pressure was right, then you just didn't beat him back in those days. Just like this guy, you just don't beat him. So that's all the wrist is really. It just bends back like that, and there's a certain amount. And if you do it like a snapping movement with it, and you're not patient with it, it'll feel weird. If you do it just a little bit, you'll feel different. You'll feel the shaft change angles. If you do it a little bit more, you'll feel it change more angle, and then you can start to be silky with it. You just want to make sure when you're trying to train it. I would tell everybody to try to train that move at home, work from transition, and work out of that. And learn how to get silky, and you're not trying to make a snapping movement or quickness. You're trying to make a really efficient movement that has a lot of pressure in that lead side of the shaft that I talk about. Because when you pressurize that first time, you're going to be like, man, I can unwind and I don't have to really do much. And that's when you get that feeling, you're doing it right. If you don't have that feeling, you're not adding that rotation I was demonstrating up there. It means that the players really hadn't done it right. So when you get in here, when you start to do that he's already increased that with that right wrist, and now it's easy for him. He's got a lot of space. He doesn't have to down cock his wrist. He doesn't have to pull. He's really just unwinding. So. Any other questions?
Hey, Matt, it's Jim.
Hey, what's up, Jim?
Not too much. Hey, I'm one of the things that I have always kind of been bad at is rolling over on my right foot. I'll roll to the outside of my right foot, and watching this video of Dustin just really, if you watch his feet, you could just see how anchored that right toe is and how everything is just so stable. And it really, it's a great example for me to keep in my mind as I'm working on trying to get better at staying rooted.
Yep.
I just wanted to make that mention because if you watch his right foot here, it's just beautiful.
Oh yeah, he's got everything centered up. When you're looking at this, you really want your body you don't want to be way open here. He's got the right amount. He's a little more than he's probably a few degrees more than what you need to be, but he's doing that to match his golf swing. It's what he needs to do. He doesn't need any less. He doesn't need any more. Definitely, if he had more, he'd blow his back out. But if you look at when the club's halfway down, you got your angles right relative to vertical and all these good striking angles. But we also look at like that this part of the body is, fairly like the hips and everything. They're a little open here, but they could be a square at this point, or they could be slightly open. When if you see like this left hip way open right here, you're going to see a player that, I'm not saying they can't hit it. You're going to see a player that's going to be in the hospital. So you don't want a lot of rotation. You want to see your body fairly square here, to a little bit open, and that by doing that, because he's got great angles of the upper body, he's got great pressures in the feet and everything. It's just simple for him. He's not even thinking about it. But this is what makes it right here. He got a good delivery angle. He's already made the move he needs to make. He's got the right amount of rotation relative to where he is and what he needs in his swing. And everybody's a little bit, they won't all look the same there, but they'll all be in the gray area. They'll be either square with their body at that point with some internal ankle rotation, or they'll be a little bit like what he has, a little internal ankle and a little bit open with the left hip. And but you're going to see the greatest ball strikers day in, day out with that angle off of vertical. And it could be more under that, and it can be more up on top. I mean, if it's up on top, you got to make that move eventually where you bend it down. It's just you're gonna look. You're gonna have a different body. Your body mechanics will not act. They won't be near as efficient. It doesn't mean you can't play it. I mean, there's players that do it on the tour that blast it. Doesn't, but you're giving up your spine. You're giving up your core. You're giving up a lot of things to compensate because of the angle that you've created with the shaft. And so I think the better angle you create with the shaft and the space, I think that that to me is what is going to give you the most potential to hit straight balls, left to right shots, right to left shots, low, anything you want. You're going to have, I think you have more options. I think if you just want to go out and pound it straight all day and rip it like he does, you can do it. If you want to hit some cuts and fades and draws, and, your ball striking creativity is going to be a lot more. You'll be able to do a lot more things with all the clubs, because a lot of times when they get vertical, it's very hard for them to learn how to hit the driver, or they hit their irons too high. It's something's going to be off. Like if you have angles like he has, he can do whatever he wants with the driver. Height wise, he can do whatever he wants with irons. Height wise, he's got more options. So that's all I would say about that. Any more questions? All right, cool. I think we'll give it a wrap. This should be a pretty good one if you can go back and listen to it a couple of times. Pay attention to the biomechanics and postures, and like I said, go to functionalpatterns.com. I would suggest anybody do that. I've been studying with those guys for a long time. They're different, which is good in a way. Sometimes that's not good, but they really know what they're doing when it comes to postures. I don't think they're the only way to train. I think there's other ways to do it. But if you just train with them only as far as postures and structure and alignments, you're gonna really develop yourself a really good strong base, and then you can start to add in the kettlebells, a little more lifts, a little higher weights, and more mobility training and core training and things like that to help you out, and you won't be giving up your lumbar and getting injured all the time. So you'll hit a lot further. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up, and I'll talk to everybody here probably either next week or the week after.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Happy New Year, everybody.
You too.